Welcome to the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. This is your podcast for all things hockey. On this podcast, we talk about past history to the modern day and what you can do to grow the sport. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. And welcome back to the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. This is episode 25. So today I did want to talk a little bit about expansion and realignment, and also, do we need another realignment? Let's get into it. So as most of you know, the Arizona Coyotes they don't have a big arena for attendance. There have been talks about them going to Houston. I think that would be a great idea for this for many reasons. First of all, you have a full-sized NBA arena, and most of the NBA arenas can at least seat or it can be transformed into an NHL arena easily. And it's two stadiums in one, essentially, an NHL arena and an NBA arena. That's one thing. Yeah. Also, Houston is a little bit bigger of a market than the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. And also, when you're playing in a college arena, it's not designed. You don't have an upper deck, so to speak. You also don't have less food options in the food court where you go down and get ice cream. There are those less options. And also there's more. Houston has a college of its own in the city. They've got better public transportation, so you can get to the stadium. That's another thing. And you also have three other major players there as well. But in Arizona, yes, you have all Big Four teams in the Phoenix area right now. And if you were to take the Coyotes out and make them the Houston Aeros, I think, I don't exactly know if, what the end result is. I mean, you can't really know that, but is there enough of a market demand there? Yeah. And if Florida has two NHL teams and California has three, I think it would also be fair to give Texas another team. Now, the Houston Aeros I don't think they got a fair shake back in the days of the WHL. The WHA, World Hockey Association. I don't think they did get a fair shake, but I do think they could certainly prove to be an excellent market as well. The Houston Astros just won the World Series, so I don't think it would be wrong to give it another go. If I had to pick another city, maybe Oklahoma City, because they also have an NBA arena, and you don't have to worry about stadium costs and offloading that on the taxpayer as well. All right, I guess that's going to be a bit of a rant, and maybe I'll write an article about that on my Substack, which you can go subscribe to. Now, the original six officially began in the 1942-43 season. Officially, that's when it began. And then you had teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Brooklyn Americans or the New York Americans as well. And yes, there actually was an NHL team by the name of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm not joking with you on that. Uh, the one thing, I mean, I do find that hilarious because there was also an NHL team or a WHA team. All right, there was an NHL team by the name of the Colorado Rockies, which I do find that funny, and I do find that funny. And then they moved to New Jersey and became the Devils. So there's that. Yeah. Yeah, so there was that. And okay, now in 1972 the Islanders came into the league, and here's the funny thing. With after the 1967 66-67 season, you had the next six teams: the Minnesota North Stars, the Oakland Seals, the Kings, the Penguins, the Flyers, and the Blues. You had those six teams, and I do think St. Louis was probably might have actually done the best in overall hockey culture because there are a lot of stars that came out of St. Louis as a result because their parents had kids, and you know, when you go to the game, more than anything, I mean, you still get the stars from the state of Pennsylvania. Of course, you're going to do that. I think, but St. Louis somehow, their culture in hockey has been great for the Midwest. They are, aside from the Blackhawks, they really were a powerhouse and for the Midwest. And I do think they're going to keep it up for a while. That they will be have their rivalry with the Blackhawks, like the Cubs do with the Cardinals. It's been more beneficial than a lot of rivalries that we've seen come out of it. And I do not see the Canucks and the Kraken just having that rivalry, or at least not yet, because the Kraken are still the newest NHL team, and the Canucks, they don't really have a rival. Just saying. They never. I mean, they lost every time they went to the Stanley Cup final, and there's no real beef with any other team exactly. There's beef between players, but not with as a team, like a Yankees Red Sox sort of vibe. And it's a shame too. They really can just make I do think that they just need to build that up in the NHL. All right. Quick break for me. All right. I'll take a quick break and I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for that pause break and bearing with me. I just needed to get my notes up. So until the expansion of the next six expansion teams came along, the most Western rivalry was between the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks. And it does make sense that if you were out living in Colorado, you'd root for either the Blackhawks or the Red Wings, assuming you were able to see that on television if they were if either of them were in the Stanley Cup Finals out there. And Denver went a long time without an NHL team. They did, and it's a shame too. I mean, what's actually kind of weird is that if you were in Denver and you rooted for the Detroit Red Wings, you know, we know about that weird rivalry now from the 90s and the 2000s, but that was your team back then. There's no doubt that expansion needed to happen too. And the MLB and the NBA, even before them, had more teams, and I guess their excuse was that most of the country was not ready for hockey. I mean, you had a lot of people living in the South, and you had a lot of people living out west, and no one thought to put a hockey team in Arizona until the 90s. I think the Jets should have stayed in Winnipeg, the original Jets. That's my opinion. But yeah. All right. So getting back to expansion now, we've got 72. Okay, so then we had 14 teams come in 72. We had the Sabres, 1972. The Atlanta Flames came in as well. And the odd part here is that they were in the West Division, even though they were playing in Georgia on the East Coast. Made little sense to me. You had, all right, we covered the Hawks, the Seals, the Leafs. The Canucks came in as well. Okay, so yeah, we had the New York Islanders, the Atlanta Flames as well. And they had to, and also along with the expansion, they were competing with the World Hockey Association starting that same season. The NHL was able to raise its expansion fee from, okay, and then there was that, and the Sabres as well. So Sabres and Canucks also certainly helped. 1974, jumping ahead here. The Washington Capitals and the Kansas City Scouts joined, but the ongoing competition from the WHA meant that the overall revenue stream of the NHL had not improved. So the league kept the expansion fee for new owners. Okay, and I'm just reading off the internet here. With 18 teams, the leagues realigned into 4 divisions and 2 conferences. The teams were mixed up regardless of North American geography, and thus the conferences and divisions were not named after geographical references. Okay, so that actually helps. Okay, and then we had 17 teams. All right, 21 teams. Here's the interesting thing. Okay. So yeah, okay, so 21 teams, and I'm reading off of Wikipedia. Forgive me. All right, the following 7 seasons. All right, 1979 to 1991. Okay, the following 7 seasons of revenue draining competition, the NHL-WHA merger was completed for the start of the 1979-80 NHL season. For 4 teams came over from the WHA, paying an expansion fee of $7.5 million each, and that's $28 million today. Geez, imagine what you could do with that. These NHL teams were the Edmonton Oilers, the Hartford Whalers, the Quebec Nordiques, and the original Winnipeg Jets, and they are now known as the Arizona Coyotes. This also doubled the number of Canadian teams in the league. So standing at 21 teams for 12 seasons, this was one of the longer stable periods of the NHL as well. But think about that. 21 NHL teams. Just think about that. And that's odd. And I didn't really know this reference until about a couple of weeks ago. But when the NHL had 31 teams and then the Caps won the Stanley Cup final, I thought, why would you not keep these even? Like, it should be an even number. Like, end it on 30, end it on 32. Don't go to 31. I hope Gary Bettman doesn't create a 33rd team. Or if he does, he's got to create a 34th. Yeah, and then and I do find that a bit weird because you should send someone over to because it mixes up everything and it confuses people and and I do think it actually gave an unfair advantage to the Capitals as much as badly as I wanted them to win. So uh, so all right. Before I go back to the 90s, I'll say this. Marc-Andre Fleury went to the Vegas Golden Knights and he faced the Washington Capitals in the postseason a third consecutive year in a row in 2018. Now he is a great goaltender, don't get me wrong, but had he stayed in Pittsburgh for the 2018 season, I think the Penguins would have won their third cup in a row and they would have been that dynasty. They would have been talked about in the same way the Golden State Warriors were talked about. But and that definitely does have an effect on all teams as well, the expansion and the realignment, because you could have a dominating goalie on your team and he's under contract, but then if expansion happens, it's like I just went out of my way to get this guy. I had to give up some of my top prospects to give up my ace goaltender. And now you're telling me I have to put him in there because of realignment rules? Like, what you've been working for was just damaged. So, or could potentially be damaged as well, because we have to keep it fair and balanced when we get an expansion team or two. So I think that's the only downside to it as well. And or one of the few downsides to it, but yeah, just wanted to keep that there. But pardon for the rambling though, but just stick with me here. Okay, 1982, Colorado relocates to New Jersey. I already talked about that. 22 NHL teams, 1991 to 1992. Okay, the San Jose Sharks were added. They paid $45 million to get in there, which is about $90 million today. The Sharks were placed in the Smythe division with the other Western Coast teams. 22 NHL teams. And of course, the Penguins won that year. Okay, 24 teams. The Tampa Bay Lightning was the first in Florida to come about, and the Ottawa Senators would come about as well. Not the original Ottawa Senators, but this was an expansion team based off the same team's name. So it's like, yeah, you might as well keep the same name. That's what they were thinking. 26 teams. The 1993. Okay, we've got the 1993 and 1994 season, and it makes sense that that I guess the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim would actually, come about, given the fact that Anaheim has Disneyland and also you've got, you had to do the movie. So I guess it was more of a marketing ploy from Disney because, I guess they saw the potential of what hockey could be. Now, the odd thing is that Florida got a second NHL team. So we didn't have the Hurricanes yet from this era, but it certainly was building up back in the 90s. Okay, and we get that. 1998 to 1999, the Predators had their first season, and then in the 2000, Atlanta gets another team as well. Now, I forgot to mention this. Back in the 70s, let me Flames. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, 72 and 73, that's when they started. And then they would move to Calgary in the 1980 to 81 season. So I guess when the Thrashers came in 99, 2000, I guess they wanted to give it another go. Atlanta is the major airport hub in the United States. And when you have to change flights in and out in Atlanta, I mean, that's it. It's crucial that you would have another team there. It's almost crucial, or at least it appeared to be before they moved to Winnipeg and became the second Winnipeg Jets. Okay, and then finally we've got the 30 teams that just held together were the Blue Jackets, one of my favorite teams, the Wild in the 2000-2001 season. And then from there on until we've got, and then we had the Golden Knights in the 2017-2018. And the odd part is that they were probably the best expansion team because they won a Stanley Cup final game. Yeah. Delayed the shorten of the 2021 season. Yeah, so okay, and then there was a shortened season. And then okay, so due to the coronavirus, I do think that also prevented the Kraken from coming about sooner. I think they could have had this done at least in the following year. Maybe they should have had it sooner, and they should have figured out a way to have a proper realignment before adding more teams. Because they should have added, you should always add at least two and keep like be smart with that. Keep your divisions and your conferences even, or make sure there's at least an even number within them. Because I guess you could have 5 in a division, but I mean, the total should just be even within the entire league, is what I'm saying. Then the Kraken come about in 2021 and 2022. I'll admit that we needed expansion in the NHL. We needed to grow the sport. I think, if anything, the best expansion city was St. Louis. They kept their team throughout everything. They, even the time when they had the Rams for a little while, they still found a way to just hang in there and just make them lovable in the same way the Chicago Cubs were. And they never moved. And even though they came up short a lot of times in the Stanley Cup finals in 70, 72, and their original starting run, where they actually did get to the Stanley Cup finals but got swept by the Les Canadiens, they, and that was probably the most significant expansion team of all time until the Golden Knights beat the Washington Capitals in Game 1 of the 2018 Stanley Cup Finals. So that was special. I don't, in terms of realignment, if I was starting the NHL, I don't think I would pick Columbus, Ohio as a starting point. I actually would put them in Cleveland if you had to ask me, or maybe even Cincinnati, but Columbus, I'm thinking no. San Jose, I guess. We don't think of these cities in any other context. Take the NBA. I think, yeah, you have the Sacramento Kings, but it's like, and you have the Jazz as well. But we don't really think of these cities like in LA or Chicago or even in Atlanta. We don't, and certainly not like New York. We don't think of them in that sense of like having multiple teams. Cincinnati is still a small market, but they have the Bengals and the Reds. And Cleveland has 3. They have the Guardians, they have the Guardians, the Cavaliers, and the Browns. They have that. So it would make sense, when you are associating these teams, like that they have another sports team. With the exception of the Green Bay Packers and the NFL and their significant history of their, 13 NFL Super Bowls, I would not necessarily go out of my way to put any team in such a small market. I mean, now you can take New York, for example, and Montreal. Now, Montreal had the Maroons at one point before we officially had the original 6. Now, in New York, we've got the Islanders and the Rangers in the city of New York. And on the west, you have the Sabres. But the third team is the Devils. And there's a lot of people living in New Jersey that love the Rangers or the Islanders, but they just happen to be living in New Jersey as well, and they don't like the Devils. And then there's people in New York that like the Devils, and it's that weird area. But the city of Newark also had the Nets at one point, so I guess we'll give them a pass. But my point is that I don't think we should start in that area. And I mean, with an area of like 15 million people, I mean, it makes sense when that would be proper time to add as well. LA, let's talk about LA. They don't need any other. They don't need a second NHL team. But let's be frank, you got the Ducks in Anaheim, and that's not too far of a drive away, and it just makes sense that they are the Kings, they are the dominators, they are the ones to dominate that area. If you had to ask me this in 2011, there was like rumors going on of Vegas getting an NHL team, and people were joking, oh yeah, buy an NHL ticket and you get a free chicken dinner or something, and you can then sit at the poker table while you watch it from the bar or something. Like no one took it seriously though in Vegas. Seattle made sense because they were building a new arena and they had everything going for them, and it made sense. And Seattle was the new market, and going back with the Kraken and the Canucks, I think they do want that rivalry because the Canucks, it doesn't have the same flow when you put them against the Flames or the Oilers. The Oilers and the Flames have their own rivalry in Alberta. And in great old Vancouver, British Columbia, there's no one. And I mean, for a little while, you had the Grizzlies and the Supersonics, but they don't exist anymore. They're moved to Oklahoma City and Memphis. They're gone. And maybe Vancouver will get a baseball team eventually. But right now, I do think that they could certainly build up to that point, but maybe not. But I'm still not seeing that rivalry in the same way. And I guess these things take time. Man, this is not going to be my best episode, and I apologize. But expansion and realignment definitely need to happen in sports. I think the NBA could certainly give it a go. With that, I would have kept the Nets in New Jersey if I had to, but we're getting off topic here. NHL. I'm always glad that the NHL has been trying this, and I guess they had to compete with the WHA, so they were not expanding the same way as the NBA or actually the NFL and the NBA or even the MLB were during from the 60s on to today. I mean, the NBA and the NFL had to compete with, their other opposites with, the American Football League and the ABA. They had to do that as well. And it wasn't exclusive too. But, the demand for hockey was always there because the WHA, stood about, and the mergers were important as well. And they didn't have to give up, their arenas and just like shut it down. They kept it. The Oilers stayed. And today it looks like, that was the best decision, because you had the dominating era of the Messier and the Gretzky era. And now I think you're going to be coming into the McDavid era. So with that, it was always important to give it a try, because a game like hockey can grow, and we've seen it. And also in your life, get out and expand your worldview, get out and expand things and try new ideas. And that's probably the biggest takeaway with the expansion and the realignment of all sports leagues. And yeah. All right. Not the best episode. I do apologize for episode 25 as well. I'll have written articles for paid members on my site. There's no bonus episode for this today, and I'll try to get a bonus episode out for you on Thursday. So with that being said, stay safe, stay great, and I'll talk to you all in the next episode of the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. Peace out.